All right, friends, it's time to give you loyal listeners a discount on protein powder. You may or may not know, but I launched my very first protein powder 2 years ago. It's a grass-fed beef isolate with only 3 ingredients: grass-fed beef, either organic cacao or organic vanilla, and organic monk fruit. Now, if you don't want any of the added flavor and sweeteners, you can also just get unflavored. And no matter what flavor you choose, you're getting over 23 grams of protein per scoop, which is going to keep you full and satisfied between meals. I love starting my day with a Fab4 smoothie and breaking my fast with that much protein. It makes a serious difference in my cravings and blood sugar balance the rest of the day, and I've seen it with my clients as well. Now, I never thought I'd own a product company, but when I got pregnant with Sebastian, I realized the majority of protein powders were chemically extracted or enzymatically extracted, and I wanted to use heat and water only. I wanted minimal ingredients because we don't need those emulsifiers, fillers, or added vitamins, minerals, and probiotics. All of those additions increase the chances that it's not going to work for your body, whether it be bloating, digestion issues. I just wanted pure, clean protein to keep you full and satisfied so you could build the most delicious Fab4 smoothie. And I have to say, I'm pretty proud of the flavor. If you take a look at our reviews on Amazon, you'll see 5-star reviews for flavor. And that is key, because if you don't love your Fab4 smoothie and you don't love drinking your protein powder, you're not going to do it. It won't become a habit, and it's consistency that outpaces everything. So if you're here and you're listening and you want to give our protein powder a try, use the code PODCAST5 for $5 off your order. And let me know if you love it. My favorite ways to apply this protein powder is in my Fab4 smoothie, making freezer fudge, making chocolate milk, making hot chocolate, and throwing the unflavored into all my kids' baked goods. So let me know how you use it. Let me know if you love it, and share this podcast deal with your friends. Welcome back to the show. I just wanted to take a minute to thank everyone who's left a review, whether it's on Amazon because you're loving the new protein powder, or here on iTunes because the podcast is empowering you. This one from Mandy really rocked my world. The best of health and wellness. In a time where scientific misconceptions are abound, Kelly is someone who provides a trustworthy evaluation of the scientific literature and really makes her mark as an evidence-based source. The guests on her show are always fantastic, experts in their field, and as a host, she asks thoughtful and insightful questions. I listen to the Be Well by Kelly podcast on my evening walks to unwind and come away feeling informed, empowered, and soothed. Thank you, Kelly, for being a trustworthy source of health and wellness information. Gosh, Mandy, you are so welcome. I am just happy to provide this platform for some of my favorite experts, and today's guest is no different. So let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. I'm so excited about today's guest because I am absolutely fascinated by how food affects our mood. Dr. Uma Naidoo founded and directs the first hospital-based nutritional psychiatry service in the United States. She's the director of nutritional and lifestyle psychiatry at Massachusetts General Hospital and director of nutritional psychiatry at MGH Academy. While serving on the faculty of Harvard Medical School, she was considered Harvard's food mood expert and has been featured in the Wallstreet Journal. In other words, she's curious about which foods impact our moods and how. Her new book, This Is Your Brain on Food, will be out August 4th. Dr. Naidoo, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for the invitation, Kelly. I'm really excited to be here. A big fan of your work.
Oh, it goes both ways. And I just am anticipating the release of your book. I'm so excited to get my hands on it. We were talking before the show started that one of my favorite courses when I went back to school for nutrition at UCLA was food, mood, and behavior. And I just think it's so fascinating that we can be so affected by what we eat. I know that my energy levels drastically change based on how I eat and balance my blood sugar and the nutrients I'm getting. But the mood part just takes it even a step further. So I want to get started with, how did you even get interested in this topic and start to pair psychiatry with nutrition?
Thank you. That's a really great question that I have not been asked before. So it's super cool. You know, my history of food and loving nutrition goes back to my days when was growing up in a very large Indian family with multiple aunts, mothers, grandmothers in the kitchen cooking. So I was always around food, and it was really a source of nurturance. And there was a lot of attention paid because many people in my family are physicians, including my mom. So it's a lot of attention paid to good food and good nutrition. And I just sort of carried that on. And I found that in residency, when I was working very long hours, that unlike others in my class, who would go home and feel exhausted, I would be looking forward to preparing food and what I could bring to dinner that evening or what I could make, because it was really my time to relax and to decompress. And I found that as I learned about prescribing medications, I felt a real urgency to understand what I was prescribing for my patients and the potential side effects. So I felt that sharing lifestyle measures, how they could eat better, was important if I was going to be writing that prescription. So I, decided I would do some additional training in nutrition because it was a real gap in medical school. And I took myself to culinary school because I have a passion for food. And I really didn't necessarily think it was going to come together in my career in this way. But I realized when I spoke to a mentor and shared what I'd been doing at my clinic and the work that the extra studying I had been doing. And he said, it sounds like you're really focused on this area, and I think you should continue doing it. And it also then gave me the opportunity to put a name to what I was doing and to found this clinic. But in reality, I'd been doing it since residency, and feeling people needed to start to make this connection, even then. And of course, the research has come a long way as well.
So when you were first in medical school and deciding to get additional training in nutrition, where were you able to get what you needed from school, or did you have to look elsewhere?
It was definitely not a medical school. In fact, I now work on the nutrition curriculum committee at Harvard because we really want to enhance what we teach our students. And in fact, we're setting up this really cool with everything going on and classes not being able to return in person yet. So some years are not back on campus. We're starting this really cool virtual culinary class for our students, and we're having it in different time zones because everyone's all over the country. But we're really going to focus it on healthy eating and cooking, but with nutritional science. So we're going to teach it and also have fun with the class. And really, it's an elective because it's not, of course, we teach nutrition in the curriculum, but it's an elective because we really want to enhance the education. So, and we know it's a gap.
Right, absolutely. Well, it sounds like you went after not only the nutritional science, but then adding the culinary aspect of being able to really put what you're learning into practice in your own house and with your clientele. So what were some of the things that you learned when you started to really look at like the holistic wellness of someone's mental health and pairing that with your psychiatry clinic?
I like how you described that, Kelly. And the reason is that I think of psychiatry in a very integrated approach and from a functional angle as well. So when I see someone, I have always been curious about the root cause because many of us might agree that, the DSM-5 TR, which is our classification in psychiatry that we use, doesn't cover all individuals and all humans. There are many people who don't fit criteria, who still are not feeling good or have some symptoms and not others, and really still need help. So I felt that there was a need to certainly use the classification when we need to, but also embrace the struggles that my patients were having. I started to notice things like people complaining about weight gain, but at the same time, I would notice what they were eating or drinking. So at my community clinic, people might sometimes bring in their breakfast or their snack as they were coming in to speak with me. And I would observe what they were eating. And, if someone was having a fast food breakfast, there are things right there that you can start to correct and discuss with them. Mm-hmm. And as that interest grew, I began to do more and more of it and ask more questions and read more literature and sort of find out the science behind it. And then I started to notice that individuals were being referred to me for, say, panic disorder and anxiety. But when I took a history, their real distressing symptoms were their gut-related symptoms. They were uncomfortable, they had gas, bloating, diarrhea, different types of symptoms. And, it became clearer to me that there was this connection. And why not, also use food in a way to teach them how to eat better? And wouldn't that be a way to improve mood? Because we know there's a biological, anatomical, biochemical relationship between the gut and the brain. It's linked by the vagus nerve, and it seemed like this was an area that we were not addressing, and it became more and more important for me with my patients.
I love it. So when a client came in and you did their health history, it sounds like you were talking a lot more about even physical symptoms and outside of what they were dealing with emotionally or maybe mentally.
Exactly, because as part of our training in psychiatry, we have to take this full history, right? And you ask a review of symptoms, and the drill, Kelly. But part of it is that when you then hear, well, I'm also having these severe gastrointestinal symptoms, doc, you realize there's a connection here. And I do remember those cases very much at the top of my mind, because you present with one symptom, but actually there's so much more going on at the root of the illness.
What are some examples of the types of patients that you would see that may present with anxiety or depression? And what were some of the, physical symptoms they were having, maybe in their gut or digestion? Are there specific links that you're finding in research and in your clinical practice to overlap?
A little bit of both. So some individuals, have, for example, I had a patient who was really trying to eat healthy, and she'd heard what I was saying. She'd read about some of my work and was really trying to eat healthy on her own. And before she came to see me, she decided to go on her own cleanse. And she decided that she self-diagnosed herself as being addicted to candy. And especially at night, at the end of her meal, she'd eat a bunch of candy. So she decided she was just going to stop eating all of the sugary things in her diet. And she did it all at once. And she booked an appointment with me and came in saying that she had a generalized anxiety disorder because she'd read about it. And I said, well, that's interesting. People read about symptoms and they understand it, and I wanted to hear more. But as I took the other part of the history, the nutritional background and the health history, I realized that she had suddenly precipitously stopped eating sugar. So she was describing to me how the night before she came in to see me, she had a severe panic attack for the first time in her life. And so I asked her, what made you say generalized anxiety disorder? And she said, well, I read about it and I've been feeling very anxious. And the history, though, didn't add up to prior to her detox from sugar, which she tried to do on her own. And so, we talked about sort of eating the healthier forms of sugar from whole foods instead of through candy and through soda and those types of things. And then to also gradually wean off these things, because we know they're bad, but her body almost went into a sense of shock because it didn't have the sugar, and she had bouts of almost yo-yo levels of her blood sugar, and she was feeling panicked. So we helped her get onto a proper diet in a slow and steady way, and slowly, gradually give up the sugar, and replace the sugar in her diets with, healthier forms of, say, if she was having a dessert, or if she was baking something, using natural products instead of really relying on the sugar that she'd been eating and the candy.
That's great. Just really more leaning into those cellular foods wrapped in fiber, whole foods,
exactly.
Less refined foods. Now we have to get into the foods. So you've obviously been able to write an entire book on how your brain is on food. Can we talk about the foods that support mood, especially now? I mean, we're dealing with, 2020 has been quite a year for all of us.
Of course.
So how can we eat to elevate mood, support mood, decrease anxiety? What have you uncovered in your research?
So I the way that I discuss it in the book is that I have these kind of cheat sheets at the end of each chapter for foods to avoid as much as foods to embrace. And the reason I mention the foods to avoid is because there are many things that people are eating that they don't realize are impacting their mood in a negative way. We just spoke about sugar. But, the things that have sugar are not always obvious. Savory foods have a ton of sugar in them. So people don't realize that things like ketchup and salad dressings and tomato sauces and stuff have a lot of sugar. So when you start adding those foods into your diet, you're working against your mood. And then, we talk about the high glycemic load, carbohydrates, and trying to keep those more towards the healthier glycemic load, avoiding the traditional artificial sweeteners, staying away from them. And if you have to try something, perhaps using something like erythritol, maybe a little bit better than some of the others. Avoiding the things that we know, the fried foods and the bad fats and things like nitrates in processed meats, because those also can worsen mood. So once people know the things to avoid, then we share with them the things they can embrace. And that makes them feel much better because they don't realize how many things they can eat. And the things that I like to talk about is, like you said, Kelly, it's a healthy whole food diet. It's embracing, plant-based foods, healthy proteins, nuts, seeds, better fats, legumes. And, also paying attention to pre and probiotics. So with the prebiotics, firstly telling and explaining to people that these really support the healthy gut bacteria, and telling them certain prebiotic foods that are in their diet anyway, and why not, sort of up their game on those foods like garlic, onions, dandelion greens, asparagus, leeks, all of the allium family fall into prebiotics. So they can include those. Things like beans have prebiotic fiber in them. And then the probiotic foods, which also include fermented foods. So, including things like non-fruited yogurt with active cultures, tempeh, miso, sauerkraut, kefir, but the unflavored kind, kimchi, kombucha, all things that they can enrich their probiotic load with. Then we ask them to stick towards, the healthier fats like olive oil and the types of oils from nuts and things like that. And, the other things that we know, such as omega-3 fatty acids, about which there's a ton of research. And then, fun things that people may not know. Saffron, the spice, has been studied in depression and tends to be very effective. The thing about saffron is it's highly expensive and you may need too much of it for culinary or cooking purpose. So in that case, I'll suggest to someone to discuss with their doctor and maybe consider a supplement in that case. But first, try the foods, and turmeric is another good one, but just add a pinch of black pepper.
Can you talk about, I'm sure, growing up in an Indian family that was cooking a lot and seeing that example, I'm sure were around a lot of turmeric and around a lot of saffron and those really flavorful dishes. How does flavor play a role in satisfaction and mood?
That's an interesting question, because I think that often people feel that if they have to eat healthy, that it goes toward food that isn't going to be tasty. Mm-hmm. And I spend a lot of time working on recipes that my patients can very easily do that have a lot of flavor in them. Because if something is flavorful and they enjoy their food, it makes them feel better. Firstly, because it's tasty food and they're not feeling that they're eating, something that someone might feel is very depriving or very negating of a proper meal. So if you say, eat fewer calories and only eat this, people feel that they're giving up something and it takes away from the joy of eating. So the whole idea behind foods to embrace is how many and much of these foods you can eat. The flavor that you can impart. And spices are so easy because there's no calories, there's no salt added, and you can change up one dish from being Indian to Moroccan to Mexican to Italian just by the spices you use. So I try to work with them on things like that.
I love it. You're definitely bringing in your culinary background there. Which makes me really curious about what day in the life of you looks like, knowing that you are so knowledgeable in how food can affect your mood. I'm sure you want to feel like you're in the best mood all day long. What's an example day in the life of you?
Sure, I'm happy to share that, but I'm also happy to say that happy to be open and transparent and say that there are times that I struggle myself. I'm like any other person that on a particular day, if I get up with a lot of angst about a meeting or some important thing that's happening, I have to reset that in my mind as well and figure out what, I've got to focus on these foods for today to make myself feel better. But a day in my life is I find that one of the things I learned in culinary school was that prep and planning and meal planning was super important. And the more organized I am in my kitchen, the faster I can work, but also the more things I can get done. What I mean by that is if I prepare my little breakfasts for the week, whether it's a chia pudding, it's high in fiber, high in protein, great nutrients, or whether it's, whether it's a little, if it's egg cups or whatever it is, if I do it ahead, I'm set up for the week. And then for lunch, I love to do a really nutritious salad. And the more I like to count the number of vegetables I'm going to put in and count the number of colors, just to challenge myself, because I really want a biodiversity of fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, legumes, and beans that I can, that I can have in my lunch salad. And then I like to simplify it with just a squeeze of lemon and some zest of lemon, because it turns out a pinch of salt, pinch of pepper, and a simple squeeze of lemon will enhance your salad. You don't even need a dressing. But if you want to, you could make, vinaigrette of your choice. I love drinking green tea, and I like plain water. So I walk around, when I'm working from home, I'm at the hospital, I always have some sort of bottle, my bottle that I take to work. I have a glass one that is not something that will break easily, and I chug it along wherever I'm going. So I keep myself hydrated, and I find that I feel better if I know days when I have been stressed and busy and haven't gotten enough water. And then dinner is really whatever I feel like. One of my favorite things to do is really play with the flavors on a cauliflower steak. And, I like using tandoori spices, or the people have eaten chicken tikka masala using the spices and the probiotic rich yogurt to kind of marinate it and make it in a different way. But I also go towards Italian on another day. So it just depends. But that's sort of, a pretty straightforward day in my life. It's not that exciting. But it's just kind of the stuff I'm used to.
Oh, major takeaway right there is just your lunch. I love having a salad for lunch. I think it's a great time to have raw vegetables and to feel like you're hydrating through the produce. But I love counting vegetables and counting colors, because I think that's a fun, positive way to gamify it in a way that doesn't feel restrictive, that really feels nourishing, that feels supportive. And just the takeaway of meal prep and planning, I can tell you in my practice, the clients who really start to embrace healthy food and make it look easy are the ones who do a little bit of work a couple of days a week just to set themselves up for the next couple of days.
That's it. I had a patient actually feel that she connected losing weight to the mere fact that she, we spoke about meal planning, and she decided that she was going to use half of the hours on her day off to go to the supermarket, do the meal planning. And she felt that simple change in her life helped her over the period of a month to lose weight, because she was simply eating whole foods. She wasn't restricting anything, but she was planning what she was going to do for the next week. So she wasn't running to the cafeteria at work for an unhealthy snack or the vending machine, but she was, she always had something handy with her in her lunch bag. And we also talked about this. There's a lunch bag that you can get that is frozen. So it has the ice packs in the bag itself. You probably have seen them, and that was super helpful for her too, because then she didn't need a refrigerator.
No, I love that. I have seen that at Whole Foods. We'll put a link to one of those in the show notes for sure, because I think for people, once they get back out there and they're having to get back to work, in real life with people and not via Zoom, that's the kind of thing that can be really supportive. Can we get into the nitty gritty? Because you sort of went over what can support mood, healthy proteins, nuts and seeds, focusing on low glycemic vegetables and produce, which you're speaking my language. I love I love protein, fat, fiber, and greens. I'm always looking for it. Your push towards gut health with prebiotics and probiotics, and then just even mentioning that you really focus on that variety of plants and the variety of color on your plate. How does gut health, what is research telling us? How does gut health influence mood and mental state?
So, it's something that it's interesting because the microbiome and gut health has been studied for a while, but it's only really that, to credit individuals like Dr. Mark Hyman, who's writing about this type of idea 12 years ago, that he was noticing in his practice of medical care of patients that they were improving when he changed their diet to a whole healthy foods diet, that their mood and other symptoms were improving. So the linkage has been there from individuals like him and others. But I think that where the research is now is we actually understand that anatomically there's this connection between the brain and the gut by the vagus nerve. And what this means and should tell us is that, number one, there's the vagus nerve. And the other thing is that more than 90% of the serotonin receptors are in our gut. And what that will help people to understand is that if you're eating bad food, it's not going to help the serotonin that will help you feel better. So serotonin is otherwise called the happy hormone. If you're eating bad foods, your gut is disrupted. The bad bacteria flourish. The good bacteria aren't doing so well. You end up with an imbalance, and that imbalance leads initially to inflammation and potentially over time to a leaky gut. What this does is that the communication, which is a two-way communication through the vagus nerve between the gut and the brain, starts to change because the nutrients that you need to feel good and to feel better are not getting to the places that they need to get. And this is when inflammation can set in. So on the positive side, when you are embracing fiber-rich foods like fruit and vegetables, and if you can't get them easily and times are tough in the supermarket, as was the case not so long ago, frozen is completely fine as long as there's no added salt, sugar, syrup. And adding to the fiber load of your gut improves the healthy bacteria and makes them make you feel better through how they impact mood and anxiety and other symptoms. The issue is that there's also a very large part of your immune system in the gut. So by eating these foods rich in fiber and nutrients, you are helping the balance of your gut bacteria. You are helping your immunity and you're helping your mood because then the serotonin receptors are located right there. It's one way to make that link more easily understandable to people.
I see. Yes. I think that it's profound. You can see it in your clients and I can see it in mine is when someone starts to eat a little bit cleaner, their digestion comes online a little bit better and they're feeling better physically. They're feeling better mentally as well.
Exactly.
So going even deeper, when you mentioned saffron as something that has been tested against depression and anxiety, are there other specific foods that you find you're recommending to clients in your practice based on their diagnosis?
Sure. So if we're looking at mood disorders, we know that omega-3 foods are well known. The fish like salmon, mackerel, tuna, herring, sardines, well sourced are good quality omega-3 fatty acids. But omega-3 also helps anxiety. So it's a great food to incorporate in your diet if you have both symptoms of anxiety or depression. You get your B vitamins from a lot of good foods that you can incorporate. Turmeric with black pepper actually supports mood, plus it supports immunity. And it has these antioxidant, antiviral, anti-inflammatory, and multiple other properties. Then, there are things like for depression, there are herbs like oregano, things like passion flower, which you can add to a tea, chamomile that you can add to a tea, that have actually been shown to support mood. So, in addition to the healthy foods diet and the understanding that the whole foods diet that's rich in fiber, prebiotics, and probiotics will support the gut and thereby help your mood, there are those other specific foods as well that you can go into.
I love it. And now we have to talk about sort of the elephant in the room, which is what I think most women feel like makes them feel the best: chocolate. Is there any science behind that?
So chocolate is one of my favorite topics, and the reason is that the fun things about chocolate that are lesser known. For one thing, when we tell people to eat chocolate, we ask them to eat dark chocolate. And the reason is the darker the better, because it's much richer in the antioxidants and the flavonols. But some fun facts about it are that the process of how the cacao beans are made and how that dark chocolate comes to be dark is that there's a fermentation process. So I also like to tell people, and it makes my female friends very happy, that it is a fermented food. So if you're eating a good quality dark chocolate that doesn't have all the added sugar and the processed ingredients and the added unhealthy fats, you're doing your body good on multiple levels. The antioxidant load is super important for your brain, and the fact that it's fermented by this process means that it's definitely going to be good for your gut as well.
I love that. I didn't know that dark chocolate was fermented. That's new to me.
It's a process of the cacao bean. Yeah,
I love it. Yeah. So what about, because there is caffeine in chocolate? What about caffeine? I know you mentioned that you drink green tea. Have you seen anything in research when it comes to mood and caffeine? Pros and cons.
Sure. So, what we found when we looked at this for the work in depression was that there wasn't any compelling information. We know that the caffeine in chocolate can keep you awake, but it doesn't do that for everyone. So I think that we haven't found compelling research on the association between caffeine and mood. And what I'd like to say about caffeine is I have a cup of coffee, and I have a certain amount of coffee, and I have it early in the day. I think that if you tolerate that and you like that, well and good. If you don't like coffee, then, there are a myriad of really healthy teas that are good for you and good for hydration.
I love that you're not anti-coffee, and that there isn't any compelling research that tells you not to be, because it's my happy little morning ritual. I'd like to eat it.
It is. And actually some of the health data regarding other conditions make it a positive addition. And as with a lot of what people will see in my book, I talk about doing things in moderation. So we talk about alcohol. And because the reality is that some of what we face in the country is that there can be polarizing beliefs around certain foods and excluding this food or that food. As a psychiatrist, in order to help someone, I really have to understand their perspective and what they're coming in, because they're already suffering. They're feeling depressed or anxious or have ADHD or OCD, and they're suffering on a bigger level. So, if I suddenly say to them, give up this and give up that, people feel poorly. They feel worse. And I have found in my work in the clinic that I run, that when you can offer people more options and say, look, have coffee, just don't have a ton of it. But if you're having problems sleeping and you're just not sleeping at all, maybe we should wean you off the coffee that you're having and see how you do. And if you're feeling a lot better, then maybe that is an issue, but it's not the same for everyone. And my plans that I develop are very, very personalized for people based on that.
That's great. I think when we are working with clients and you are compressing the list of foods that they can't eat, anxiety skyrockets even in people who don't have a history of anxiety, because all they're going to want are those foods. So are there any other controversial foods outside of caffeine and alcohol? It sounds like you're open to occasional alcohol use. And do you have a preference for the type of alcohol?
So, I will say to people that the most, because the polyphenols, that red wine has the most evidence that we know of at this point. So if you're going to indulge, that might be a better choice. It's also, something linked to the Mediterranean diet in that region. And so there may be a reason to pick up a glass of red wine. If you drink other kinds of alcohol, I would be aware of what you're adding to your cocktail because of the added sugars, and try to have a cleaner cocktail, adding in things like always in moderation, but adding in things like fresh lime juice, fresh lemon juice, squeeze an orange to add it if you're adding it to a cocktail, rather than using the syrups and the simple syrups and stuff that go into a lot of cocktails when you go out.
That's great advice. So I think I have a couple more questions for you before we end today. One would be carbohydrates and mood. There's a lot out there, and you'll see it on social media, and you'll see people talking about how to feel good and to have elevated mood, you have to have carbohydrates. Is there any validity to that?
So, that's an interesting question, because people also have said that, for example, there's some animal data that shows that a keto diet could potentially help anxiety. But we don't have a fully fleshed out body of evidence yet. This is preliminary. But there is information out there to suggest that even some of the elements of the keto diet could potentially help mood. Where I stand on this is I would rather people understand that they should include carbohydrates in a healthy way. So what we have in the book is tables of lower and medium glycemic foods. Eat the ones that you can tolerate. If you have discomfort, you may need to speak to your doctor or your nutritionist about what types of carbohydrates you should be eating. And don't exclude it unless you're having an issue and you've seen a nutritionist or doctor who's saying this is a problem for you and this is something you need to give up. If not, just go with the lower GI type carbohydrates, and see if you can use other foods to really bring in the super nutrients that you need in your diet.
I love that. I feel, especially coming from you, and your background in pairing psychiatry and nutrition and being such a wealth of knowledge, I think it can get really overwhelming when there's information being shared on the internet or on social media about having to have carbohydrates to produce, whether it's serotonin, melatonin to regulate mood. And I've seen the same thing that you're seeing in clinical practice when people support blood sugar balance and they have less crashing and less withdrawals, they actually feel more balanced, not only in their body on a biochemical level, but in their brain and in their mood as well.
Exactly, because their body is getting nourished with proper whole foods. Their blood sugar levels are not crashing and going up and down because their insulin is more stable and on an even keel. And they're also less anxious. When the insulin is bouncing all over the place and their blood sugar is, they feel more anxious. So just eating those types of more whole foods helps to even that out. And it's very rarely that I will ask someone to eliminate a food, and it really has to be proven to me that they're allergic or they're intolerant to it. Because I think that I think that plant-based diets is hugely important. There's an immense amount of data behind them. I think that there's an emerging body of evidence around keto diets and mental health. But here's the thing: a large portion of the country, eats meat, eats red meat, eats all types of protein. So we have to find a way that we can embrace everyone's diet and say, wherever you're at, what are the things we can tweak to help you feel better? And especially in mental health, that's important. Because people, like I said earlier, they're already suffering.
Right. Is there advice you'd give people across the board, from vegan and vegetarian all the way to paleo or carnivore? What are there specific recommendations? I know you really work with bio-individuality and client by client and looking at their diet and their lifestyle. But are there like the top 3 or 4 things that you'd say everybody should be doing to elevate their mood and really heal their gut for mental health?
So, I think that it would, and for each of those groups, the individuals would have to decide, the keto person would have to count their carbohydrates, the carnivore may not want to eat any vegetables at all. It much depends on what choice that person can feel that they make a shift from. But again, it comes to me, it comes down to a healthy gut is a happy person. And the way that I approach that is, the same thing that I will say over and over. It's the fruits and vegetables, the fiber-rich fruits and vegetables, because you can't get fiber from meats and protein. You get it from, fruits and vegetables. So that nuts, seeds, legumes, and always add in some healthy fat. So if you want to maintain, it's almost as though you want to run the engine and you want to keep the engine of your body well tuned. And to do that, those basic foods, of which some will be prebiotics and probiotics, will keep that engine running. When that imbalance starts to happen, so say you decide you're going to a certain extreme diet and you're eliminating a certain food, you may do well. I'm not saying that you won't. But if you're coming into me and you're saying that your mood or anxiety or you have other symptoms of mental health symptoms, I'm going to say, well, that diet that eliminated X, Y, and Z, let's relook at it and see what we can do to help you feel better. And that's where the bio-individuality comes in.
Got it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today. We end each podcast with one question, and that is, what does body love mean to you?
That's a great question. I feel like it's also linked to self-care, because as a psychiatrist, I believe in an integrated, holistic model of treatment, always looking for a root cause, almost functional psychiatry. But where I think when I also embrace and talk to people about self-care as part of how they feel, to me, that self-care links to body love, because it's really about embracing yourself, being okay with the fact that you may have bad days, you may not be perfect, you may not have had the perfect meal, you may have eaten a slice of pizza because that was a day that was a treat day for you. So rather than make yourself feel bad, why not correct at the next meal? So to me, part of self-care is loving yourself, because when you are healthy and happy from the inside, the natural part of just loving your body and loving yourself on all levels, I have noticed in people happens in an organic way.
Ugh, that resonates so well with me. I truly think it's about those daily things that remind us that we're taking care of ourselves.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, where can people follow along, and where can they find your book?
Thank you. So the book is available at all major booksellers, including Amazon and all the online retailers. And, it's available at my website, which is umanaidoomd.com. We have a lot of pre-order incentives. We're doing a cool giveaway with a cooking class on the site. So it's up to you. You really can buy it. We appreciate the support from wherever you would like. I hope it'll be helpful to your listeners. And you can also follow us on social media. We'll be doing some cool things on Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that. All of the links are on our website.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I'm so excited to introduce you to my audience, and hopefully they will get out there and snag the book.
Thank you so much, Kelly. It's been such a pleasure, such a good conversation.
Absolutely. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk soon.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to Be Well by Kelly. Please subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Learn more at BeWellByKelly.com and follow me on Instagram at BeWellByKelly. I would love if you picked up my books, Body Love and Body Love Every Day. They're sold on Amazon and at all major booksellers.